Hello, and a warm welcome to the Irish Angle, our weekly catch-up show looking back at what happened in racing over the last week. Emma Nagle is still away. She's on a beach, and it's not Leopardstown. Johnny is here, just the two of us on the show again this week. Johnny, we've loads to go through. Should be a bit of fun.
We certainly do, Vinny. Yeah, I was kind of making this joke over the weekend. Like it feels like Irish Champions Festival now is Leopardstown, the Curragh, Laytown, for a real unique experience. The Curragh has gotten a lot of slack, Vinny, for the amount of money that was spent on it. And as I was there yesterday, I had to reflect on the fact that Laytown will get a not incomparable crowd today for 0 to 70 races and one of the middle maidens, and it costs obviously nothing. And the Curragh, which costs 100 million or whatever, can only attract a certain crowd. But the other thing that I was reflecting on the Curragh yesterday, and I had American cousins at the meeting, and we were very well looked after, and we had a great day. It was as much as people give out about what they spent on the Curragh. Imagine if they tried to do it now, it would probably cost 200 million. So some swings and roundabouts and all that.
Yeah, well, a bicycle shed costs 335,000 nowadays, doesn't it? Yeah, unbelievable what they can spend money on. Anyway, we'll get stuck in. Irish Champions Festival. What a weekend it was now. Really top class stuff, I thought. The first one, Irish Champion Stakes. What did you make of that? Now, I know it's a bit of a bunch finish, but to me, there were some fantastic performances in it. I thought Economics was exceptional. Beating Augustus Rodan, who was very well fancied. Then you had Shin Emperor, a bit unlucky, I think, there. Big marker for the Arc in another month's time.
Yeah, the race had the race didn't have a filly, Vinny, but it had pretty much everything else. To have a horse coming over from Japan, who's prepping for the Arc and having moved to France, like really unique stuff. And then you had probably the premier middle distance horse from Britain this year, or Mile and Two horse anyway, who just for whatever reason wasn't supplemented for the Derby, and he came, and this was his proper test. And like I was trying to explain this to my American cousins who could completely see where I'm getting at. Like if Aidan O'Brien sends a horse over to Belmont and he's taking on, say, Todd Pletcher as 3 in the race, something like that, it's a completely different ballgame. When you're coming over to Ireland, when you see the context of how the Champions Stakes was run last season, when it was really dominated by one owner in effect, Coolmore, and 1 yard, there was a big threat of that happening again, and it was a tactical race, but it was absorbent to watch. Economics, I know it was only a neck, but it was kind of a convincing neck in the end. And I felt Shin Emperor's prep for the Arc was really exemplary. And I was like, I think he's still available a bit of 10 to 1. He's an outstanding bet for the Arc, I feel, because he travelled really well. Then took a little bit of time to quicken because he's probably more of a 1.5 mile horse, but very strong at the line. Go down by less than a length. And it was a bit of a bunch finish. And you can say it wasn't the best vintage renewal of the race, but I thought it was really compelling. So.
Yeah, it was great to watch, to be honest. Just another thing on that is with Los Angeles finished 4th, pretty good run. Ghost Writer 5th. They both finished behind City of Troy, well behind City of Troy already this season. So where would you put Economic, City of Troy as the two top 3-year-olds of their generation?
Yeah, I suppose that in hindsight now, we didn't. I'm really like this whole thing of going down the classic route is fascinating to me. But God, it would have been some race if he were here. Like I don't think Aidan is bullshitting when he speaks about City of Troy in a manner that would suggest that like if he raced against August Rodan, I don't think there'd be debate as to who he'd be riding. And August Rodan has shown himself to be a top class performer, but his form wouldn't stack into the kind of superstar category either. And City of Troy, the way he's spoken and his performance the last day in particular, and how strong he is at the end of his races. I think they might have gone a stronger gallop, to be honest, as well, Vinny, if he were in it, because he has that. He's so strong at the end of his races. If he were running the Champion Stakes that was run as sluggishly as this, I don't think that would have happened, to be honest. But the two of them, I'm not sure they'll ever meet. The two of them race against each other would be something else. I'd be in the City of Troy camp, but Economics, like massive advertisement for his sire as well. He's actually very likely raced. Like he's really only getting going in Group 1 company. So it'd be something else if they raced. I'd be with City of Troy, but would be next time we'll see him will be obviously at Southern.
Yes, that's right. That's coming up this week as well, Friday. Wonder what sort of a crowd they'll get there. Will it be comparable to Laytown with him doing his little gallop? Anyway, the other thing is Tom Marquand. He fantastic riding, wasn't it? Leopardstown won both of the Group 1 races. Tactically very astute. He didn't fall into any problems with the Ballydoyle contingent in the Champions Stakes, and he was very good on Donnacha's horse, Portive Fortuna. as well. What do you make of him? Tom Marquandy's top class, is he?
Yeah, very, very solid rider. And I think that when you come to Leopardstown Champion Stakes Day and you look and you're an English rider, you look at Daryl Holland 20 years ago or so on Falbrad, you can, if you ask the jockeys, like, it mightn't seem as obvious on TV, but Leopardstown compared to the Curragh, it's really chalk and cheese. It's a tricky track and things can go wrong. And you know that you've gone out taking on the Ballydoyle battalion in these races. Like, I thought Port Fortuna, she's a filly that I think Dunick has said after the Guineas that she wasn't necessarily getting the credit she deserved. And there's almost still a sense of that, I think, because she's not by a particularly fashionable sire or flashy sire in Caravaggio, and the fact that she was obviously beaten on her seasonal return, she's been exemplary since. And in hindsight, she was a very, very solid bet, and it was a kind of a no-nonsense ride from him as well. And that on economics, you have to have the horse, but like, he just got it right basically on the day, on a big day, and that's what matters.
Yeah, and of course his wife rides pretty well too, doesn't she? Holly Doyle, first winner in Ireland on Sunday, of course, in the Flying Five and that Bradsell. Just back to one thing about Saturday, is the one thing I wanted to ask you what you think here. The Juvenile Stakes, we'd 4 runners, a Group 2 for 2-year-old colts over a mile, and then we've a very similar race, the National Stakes on the Sunday, which is a Group 1 for 2-year-old colts over 7 furlongs. So we end up with 4 runners in that Juvenile Stakes. Third year in a row, we've had less than 8, so we haven't had proper each-way terms for it. Can you see them making changes here for next year on that?
Possibly, Vinny, yeah, because in fairness, I know that the program has evolved a bit, but they're very, very similar races, like 7 furlongs in a mile. You're almost splitting hairs at this stage. And some horse, okay, they'll say, oh, he's not going to say a mile, but it's very, very easy to split them up. And that was actually the Champion Juvenile Stakes, which it does actually produce very good winners. But that was the one race, even though it was a great race to watch, that was the one race nearly on the weekend where I was just like a bit meh about it, thinking that, the Vincent O'Brien National Stakes was the bigger race as it should be with the Group 1. But when you have a turnout of 4, like the fillies race yesterday with 5, that didn't bother me at all. You right horses there, but 4 runners in a race like this, it was a bit disappointing. Again, it was quite a tactical race, fascinating to watch. But I'd agree with you. I think they could look at this, because having the 2 races so similar one day after the other is just allowing the powerful to kind of spread their horse around.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned that in my blog today about the fact that Whirlpool are sticking a fortune in here. I think Leopardstown and the Curragh both got about 600,000 sterling for their media rights each day, because it was part of the Whirlpool. So these guys are sticking a fortune in here, and they can't bet on a 4-runner race in Hong Kong, as far as I know. They certainly can't have all their exacta and exotic bets that they normally have, even if they do bet on it. But I'm not even sure they do bet on any race with 4 runners. So they'll want to change. But on the other flip side of it, it really suits Coolmore, doesn't it? Having this time of the year with all the 2-year-old colts they have, they can split them up, win both races basically, not have to take each other on with their very best if that's the case. So it'll be interesting to see who wins that little battle, because there will be a battle about it, I'd imagine. I'd say the Hong Kong guys were on the phone at declaration time, probably on Friday, wanting to know what the hell is going on here with a 4-runner race.
Yeah, and in fairness to, like, my reading into the Aidan O'Brien / Coolmore, they're very much on message in terms of getting 8 runners in the Champion Stakes and the National Stakes. I just thought it was massive to have the 3 each way kind of place in that race, and to make sure there was 8 in the race. And Coolmore has done that a little bit this season. So I think the Whirlpool, the figures you're talking about there, Vinny, it's astronomical for Irish. I mean, yesterday, we were upstairs sort of in the owners and trainers area, and my cousin was like, will you be able to have a bet up here? And I said, I actually don't know. But then a guy comes around with the tote kind of portal or whatever, and you're like, actually, with the Whirlpool, these are proper races to have a bet in, because the tote is utterly obsolete on every other day of the year. So it's a massive boon, and those numbers, but we can't be justifying having 4 runners in a race of that nature and without asking questions at the very least.
Yeah. One other thing I just note, because I saw it earlier and I couldn't believe this, the 17 winners across the 2 days of the Irish Champions Festival all carried different colours. Now, they weren't all absolutely different owners, but the usual Coolmore, whoever tosses the coin and gets to run in their colours, but 17 different sets of colours. You wouldn't see that in National Hunt racing anyway. One other thing then, just going on to Sunday, we'd some cracking racing on Sunday. The first one is that Flying Five, which Holly Doyle, of course, won. First girl to ever win a Group 1 race in Ireland on the flat, and her first winner in Ireland as well. But the big thing here is the first 6 home were all British trained. Our sprinters can't compete, can they?
No, it's just I don't. I mean, this would be a good podcast topic someday. Like, why are we so bad at breeding sprinters? And it's not that they're not marketable. And if you've very good sprinters, like they can make good and versatile stallions, often getting horses to stay a good bit further. But I don't know whether we've an aversion in this country to breeding speed with speed or whatever it is, because it's just so pronounced, the dominance of the British horses. Like, and I remember when I started getting into racing, like Osterhazy was a decent sprinter. Then you had like Soul Power and Slade Power, but by and large, one could cap briefly. But by and large, if we to paraphrase Whitnail and I, we if you're a sprinter in Ireland, you're a sprinter by mistake, because we just don't seem to breed them, or if we do breed them, we don't seem to breed them to be very good. And it was no surprise here, obviously, that the British dominated again. I thought She's Quality actually shaped quite well, but probably had a chance. And it's just weird. Like, we have a Group 1 here that's our only Group 1 sprint, and you almost feel like we've no chance to win this year anyway. And it is strange. Like, I know that, the Coolmore will be running horses in the Ledger their way, and happily running horses in the Ledger on Saturday, because they know even if they're not national hunt stallions, they'll be cheap flat stallions. So we have loads and loads of middle distance horses, and you see actually how well the Irish have done in races beyond a mile this season in Britain. But for some reason, I don't know what it is, we can't seem to breed a sprinter at all.
Yeah, and you'd imagine they'd be very popular from an owner point of view, because they're very lucrative, some of these sprint races, plus the fact that those horses seem to have real longevity, don't they? They get better with age. They're like a fine wine, some of those sprinters. It's 6, 7 before they really hit their full mark, and they seem to get quicker as they get older in a lot of cases. So it would seem like something that, from a breeding point of view, if you look at like a shop window for anything, if you had a shop and saying, what can we sell in this? Well, you can definitely sell sprinters, you'd imagine, to owners. Looking back at some of the other ones, then the Moyglare was one that this was, well, a bit odd in a way, with Bedtime Story. Ended up being the pacemaker for the stable companions in it. She obviously blew out. According to Aidan, she just bounced out of stalls, had no cover, and just went hell for leather, and that was the end of that. It's not a running draw line through it. They were pretty convinced that Lake Victoria wouldn't be good enough to beat her, though I saw Aidan said afterwards that although Lake Victoria is by Frankel, is made like a sprinter, which is interesting. So maybe that's a sprinter. He finally has one.
This race is brilliant to watch. Like, in fairness, I tipped the winner, and maybe I was relying on Bedtime Story, disappointing. But her campaign has been interesting in that I think after Ascot they probably just pulled away a bit and maybe trained her a little bit more to come later in the season. But that obviously has its pitfalls. And Lake Victoria, I was a bit surprised at the betting here, because Lake Victoria just looked so good at Newmarket in particular, and she was very green out in front, and she smashed a horse that day, rated over 100, and fascinating race to watch. I mean, I'd say she actually might have gone a nice price in running, because I mean, Jerry Hannon called her, I think, has been under pressure, which she was at the back of the field with probably 3 furlongs or so to go, but she came with the withering run, and there was a good old roar from the crowd as well. I think in races like this, and bookies will tell you this, like, punters generally don't want to back odds on shot, so there probably was a few quid on her on course, tenors and 20s and that. But she's very, very good. Like, I was extremely taken with her the last day, and she was Frankel's first 100th Group winner. In the same year that Galileo had 100 Group 1 winners, and 3 Frankels in this race, like, dominating the betting. Really, it was a fascinating race to watch. Bedtime Story returned lame, so I'd be happy to forgive her. But Lake Victoria, for the Guineas next season, she's going to be a big, big player, I think.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with Red Letter. I thought Red Letter would turn around the Curragh maiden form with Lake Victoria, because I thought Red Letter was given a little bit too much to do that day. It was first start and everything. Red Letter then went and won a maiden really well up the Curragh over the course and distance the last day as well. I thought Red Letter was going to be a big contender, but it didn't quite work out. Anyway, moving on to the national stakes, we got a bit of a minor shock here. Scorty Champ, named after Ennis Scorty. GAA, as far as I know. Anyway, it reversed form with Henri Matisse. What did you make of that? Henri Matisse, a little bit of a question mark over him after that, is there?
Yeah, I didn't think this was as big a surprise maybe as the bet. Obviously, the betting got it such a, like, there were 2 lengths in the 2 lengths between them the last day, and Scorty Champ very, very slowly away. That's not his strongest point, breaking well out of the stalls. But in this race, Henri Matisse kind of, I don't know, the last sort. I thought he was, like, I'm sure he went odds on and running about a furlong down, because he looks like he's going to swoop on the outside, and then he sort of ran around under pressure, which he's done before, in fairness. So there's a little bit of a quirk in him. Scarly Champ was more straightforward, really put his head down. He was under pressure a long way out to maintain that lead on the far side. And again, I just thought it was a fascinating race to watch. I wouldn't be underestimating the winner. I think he's a very, very good horse.
Yeah, you could be right. Dylan Brown McMonigal as well. Third Group 1 for him in his career, including this race. He won back 2 years earlier, I think.
He's so good, Vinny. Like I don't know. It's just he's the most. He's so much style on a horse as well, and like doesn't seem to make mistakes. But like I do, a lot of people every year there's an apprentice or two, and there's certainly good young lads in Ireland one. But he looks really, really top class.
Yeah, and he seems to be absolutely number one in Joseph's at this stage. Joseph talking about the ones he was picking to ride rather than it was his decision basically what he was riding in different races all over the weekend, as far as I can gather. The other thing then is the Irish St. Leger, Kyprios, very, very impressive. But what I find very interesting here is Aidan afterwards talking about the Arc as a possible. Like you'd presume the horse goes back for the Cadron if he goes to Paris. But Aidan says he's leaning towards the Arc, and I see this morning 33-1. Big price if that horse was to turn up, isn't
it? Honestly, that's a ridiculous price. Like I was saying yesterday, if you were to back 2 horses, now I was saying to my partner's dad, who'd be big into the race as well, I was like, the horse he'll go for the Cadran, but like they should run him in the Arc because like he isn't slow, and his 1 6 form is good, and like he won this by 2 1/4 lengths, but like he loads in hand at the line as is his want. And the reason I was so sweet on Shin Emperor is I don't think it's a particularly good Arc this year. It just looks fairly run of the mill, and the 2 of them now, I'd absolutely go for that race with Kyprios. I know he's had a checkered life in terms of his career and coming back from really life-threatening injuries and all that. But at this stage, like I'm not sure what, apart from prize money from Oigler and the lads, there is to be gained by running with the Cadran again. Whereas I remember Westerner ran very, very well in the Arc, who probably wouldn't have had the ability of Kyprios off the top of my head. And in an ordinary enough renewal, where they could possibly ensure, like, he definitely would want a strong pace and he wouldn't want to be too far off the pace. But there's no way he's 33-1 chance if he rocks up. Nothing like that. It'd be more like an 8-10-1 chance.
I agree, yeah. It was very interesting. Aidan mentioned it a couple of times in the post-race interviews, talking about the Arc. So obviously he's had it in his head for a while, I'd imagine. Then we had the English St. Leger on in Doncaster. Obviously it's a bit of a mess that they're on the same weekend, but I suppose, look, what can they do? Jan Bruegel beats Illinois. Jan Bruegel, 19th successive season that Galileo has sired a classic winner. That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, like he'll be, it's the Aidan O'Brien life, or the Aidan O'Brien world post Galileo has been interesting to observe, because they've almost been hand in hand in terms of record breaking couple of decades or whatever. And it was a kind of a fascinating race to watch, where I was expecting Grosvenor Square to go off harder. As it was, he was quite disappointing, really. He was fairly well back throughout the day, went off 7-2. Like I fancied him now, I have to say, and the writing was on the wall when he had no real established lead, sort of a half mile out, when the other two were travelling all over them. And like Sean Levy, it's mad how the circle has gone round, riding Lake Victoria at Newmarket and now riding a classic winner for a trainer who I don't know if Sean Levy even ever had a winner for Aidan in Britain up until Lake Victoria, because he was basically always riding like long shots when he was there. And the career that he's had now since winning a couple of classics this year, it was a fascinating race to watch, to be honest. Like, I'm not sure it was a vintage Leger, but kudos to Sean.
Yeah, absolutely, and the winner as well. Only the fourth start was it? Hadn't run since the first run was on the 25th of May. Could be anything, this Jan Bruegel, as we go forward. Looking ahead, a few other things from last week that are worth mentioning. The first one is Shark Hanlon's suspension. Now, he's appealed that which we talked about last week. He's put an appeal in over it. But they had another little referral hearing about when his suspension would start. And he wanted it deferred to April Fool's Day. How he picked that one, I don't know. But it just seems pretty ironic in a way. But they've ended up plumping for the 1st of December as the date his suspension starts. So he gets 10 weeks to sort out his affairs, I suppose, before he has to pass over the license to someone else and get out of the yard. I presume they keep them in the yard rather than somewhere else, and presume he lives there, so it's not as easy maybe as it might sound. But what did you make of that? 1st of April would have been a bit of a joke, would it?
Yeah, like I'm not sure what the thinking was there, but I think with respect to these suspensions, Vinny, you have to kind of at some point they have to actually mean something, and when you have trainers who are suspended for fairly serious breaches and they're turning up in the parade ring and obviously celebrating with winners. Like the optics are quite bad, and I'm not saying Shark was going to do that, but we're so beholden to government money. We can't have incidents like this, and I feel sorry for Shark in a way. Like it's far from the biggest infringement in the world, but there kind of has to be a proper punishment for this because it damages the sport. It simply damages the sport. We are so reliant on the government to keep it going.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, 1st of December is his date unless he wins his appeal. So we'll see how that goes in the next few weeks. Then another thing from last week is Constitution Hill had a wind operation. We haven't seen him since Boxing Day. He missed the champion hurdle because he had a respiratory problem, which I presume is why he's now had a wind up. He missed Punchestown with suspected colic, and he's due back on the track, fighting 5th on the 30th of November in Newcastle. What do you make of that? He's always going to be big news, isn't he, whatever he does?
Yeah, well, to be fair, like I don't know if I've ever seen a hurdler as dominant in the division as him and how exceptional he is and how good he could be over a fence and all that. So, in fairness, I think Nicky Henderson gets slagged a lot for his campaign and the bulletins on a horse, obviously, like long before Cheltenham, at which he may not run. But with a horse like him, he is an absolutely generational talent, and I sincerely hope that he comes back. I mean, wind up is a wind up. It's pretty much 10 a penny now. But we just at this stage, it's a bit like White Birch as the season went on. Are we going to see this horse at all? And with Constitution Hill, like I believe it when I see it in terms of when he's actually back, and I hope all is okay because he's an exceptional racehorse. I thought the 2 mile division without him that season was really boring, and I would love to see him back for connections.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nicky Henderson, he gets a lot of stick, but in fairness to him, he's some trainer, isn't he? He always seems to do the right by the horse as well, which is the first priority all of the time. I know it hasn't always looked that way because of some of the statements coming out from betting companies and everything else. He always gets a bit of flack over it. But I think all in all, he'll do right by Constitution Hill, whatever happens. Other things then, just for the week ahead, we have a few things just to note. Obviously, we mentioned already City of Troy going to that subtle gallop on Friday. We've got Laytown today. Ian Williams sends over a couple of horses, which would be interesting. 2 contenders. Well, one of them used to be with Shark Hanlon. So there's a good few quid for it this morning. And then we've Listowel begins on Sunday, another one. That's a full week of a festival again. I don't know how people keep going. And then we've Aidan. He is won in a $1.5 million filly called Dramatic, is entered at Naas on Thursday. What do you make of those, Johnny? What are you looking forward to this week? You're obviously going to Laytown.
Going to Laytown, yeah, and unique experience. Like, and I'd be proud of the fact that Irish Racing can have a race meeting like Laytown, where I mean it's just so marketable as a concept. Going to the sea, and it's a really gorgeous day out there today, so everything is perfect for that. I'm actually going to the Stole as well for the latter half of the week. You're on about the fixtures, Vinny. Like the October, I was kind of looking at the Michelle Goulding. I go to the race with her. Good works for SIS, and she sent me on like the program of races in October. I was like, this is staggering. Like there must be about 45 meetings in October or something, and there's an awful lot of racing on at the moment. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I think we're definitely in danger of less is more being kind of ignored here and having too much racing on, and it's hard to kind of maintain crowds and all of that. But I am looking forward to City of Troy, see what happens there. Obviously going to the Tapita and seeing how that works out. It's going to be actually really interesting to watch how he goes. I have massive time for that horse. Just love everything about him, really. And I'm very, very tempted to find a way to go to the Breeders' Cup, see him run the Classic. If not, watching on TV. But yeah, looking forward to that as well. And Laytown is, yeah, if you haven't been to Laytown, I'd strongly recommend it as an experience. It's great fun and not bad horse as well. And horse actually laid out for it as well, running off their turf marks, even though they might be far better on the all weather and so on.
Yeah, you think they might have brought City of Troy to Laytown, wouldn't you really? Because Delmar is right on the sea, isn't it? Would have been very similar experience, I would have thought. Anyway, obviously Aidan couldn't get him into those 0-65s.
They could have run him in the Claymores. Yeah. Put him in for like 50 billion or something, and everything else out the way. So City of Troy, yeah, we've always liked him, and the lads were happy to go to Laytown. But I saw Aidan yesterday. It was great to see him at the races, and this whole thing is it'll be big in the States as well. To see a horse, Aidan O'Brien, the naming and all of that. But yeah, it would have been good fun to see him at Laytown.
Yeah, here's an interesting thing for you. I'm in Spain, as I mentioned on last week's show. I'm over here working for you for a few weeks, and I'm taking a week's holiday next week. But I've no TV. Well, I have a TV, but I've only got Spanish channels on it at the moment. Until my wife comes over with a Fire Stick when she comes over on next Monday. But I ended up watching a video the other night, an RTE video all about Aidan O'Brien, back in the day, done 20 odd years ago. about all his different successes at that stage. And what I thought was interesting in it, there was a little line from John Magner talking about how they do the arrangements. And we always hear Aidan on about, we'll see what the lads think. And John Magner was saying, yes, we normally have a chat, but it's always Aidan's decision. Aidan makes the final decision. I was just thinking, that sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, like there's so much mystery behind like JP McManus, and that he never really gives interviews, and you almost never hear from John Magner. And the relationship between the lads, average age 77 or 8, and Aidan, like that whole, how that actually works is a mystery to me. And like I think Aidan's been given some, like Aidan wouldn't have been known, I suppose, for being an amazing person to interview over the years. And that's probably been a bit harsh as well. But in recent years, he's become really, really box office in terms of the interviews he's given. I've been lucky enough to be involved in some of them myself, and like fascinating stuff. He's not the easiest person to interview at times, because I think he's conscious of he never seems to criticize his horses. So you kind of have to take that into account, that he won't say the wrong things, if that makes sense. But the actual, I'd love to really understand how that works behind the scenes. John Magner has made so much money and has been so successful in life, and there's an awful lot of pressure here. And like I remember when, I think it was Horatio Nelson, when he ran in the Derby, and John Magner was interviewed that day, and Horatio Nelson suffered a fatal injury in the Derby, if I remember rightly. It's the same horse, and John Magner said he felt sorry for the punters. And that always struck me. I just thought it was an odd thing to say when the horse was terminally, like, was basically had to be put down. And like punters backing a horse in the Derby who broke down, I wouldn't have any sympathy for them. I mean, I'd have sympathy for the horse there. Stuff happens in racing. So it's these little snippets you get from him. I mean, he's obviously a really compelling character, has had his brushes with illness as well in recent years, and hasn't been racing as much. But like that whole dynamic of how that works, if you could, a lot of it it's just a mystery to us. Like we honestly don't know what goes on. Like what goes on when JP McManus fancies a horse. I actually don't know. I'm all these years in it, and I'm none the wiser.
That's the whole point, isn't it? It's all about the secrecy. But the other thing I did notice about that RT documentary from 20 plus years ago was how much Aidan has changed. He was extremely shy then, and the interviews he was kind of turning away from being interviewed and everything else a lot of the time. Whereas you see him now, like Emma Nagle did an interview with him when it was Istabrag's birthday earlier in the year down in Martinstown Stud. She did a one-on-one with Aidan, and I've never seen him so relaxed, and just the way he can just chat now, which he was never doing back in the day. So he definitely he's matured into the position, I suppose. It's supposed to be around long enough. He's seen it all at this stage. Anyway, we shall finish off with a horse to follow, and I'm going to start because I'd say we're going to do the very same thing here somehow, even though we haven't discussed it beforehand. But I'm going to pick two from the weekend, and they both go for the Arc: Shin Emperor and Kyprios, if Kyprios goes, of course. I agree with you. I think there's value in both of them. 33 to 1 Kyprios can't be that price, can't be anything near it. And I know that Shin Emperor's into about 6 now, second favourite, but there has to be a little bit of leeway in that, a bit of juice in it each way at 6 to 1, because Shin Emperor, that was a hell of a run, I thought, in the Irish Champion Stakes. So what are you going to go for?
I'll give the same two ridiculously. But in fairness now, yeah, like if Shin Emperor, I didn't realise he was coming that much, because I was texting everyone after the Champion Stakes, get on this horse for the Arc. Like he was at 16s or 20s, and I was kind of expecting him to run well, but I was almost surprised by how well he finished the race. He'll have an outstanding chance, even at 6 to 1. I can't see him not being thereabouts in the Arc in a run of the mill year, with the extra 2 furlongs, a huge help, and his brother having won the race, being trained for the race and all of that. But Kyprios would absolutely, at this stage, if that horse is the price you're talking about, Vinny, and I'd be inclined to think he might run in the race at this stage as well, because like essentially Ballydoyle don't have massive contenders for the Arc this year. It just hasn't worked out for some of the horses that maybe they thought would get there. City of Troy not going to go. So yeah, I'd be inclined to back them. So I'll give the same two as you.
Yeah, so of course the word of warning here is gamble responsibly. Don't blame us if it goes wrong. But yeah, I think there's a little each way betting each of them now, particularly Kyprios at the price, because it's a stab at nothing, isn't it? But at the price, you don't have to put a whole lot on to get a little bit of fun out of it if it does get declared in the end. Anyway, thanks for all your contributions, Johnny, and thanks to everyone who's watched. And we'll be back again with more shows. We'll be back again next Monday, and Emma Nagle will be back with us too. Actually, next Monday I will be here. Yeah, sorry, I'm working next Monday. I was going to say I wasn't, but I am. So there you are. So you'll see me all again next Monday. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.